Building genuine financial literacy doesn't require a Wall Street background, and you certainly don't need an advanced degree in economics to get ahead. What you actually need is a foundation of actionable, repeatable habits that seamlessly fit into your routine. Today, we're walking through 9 incredibly simple practices you can initiate immediately, with most demanding less than 5 minutes of your week. If you commit to these small adjustments, your understanding of money will transform completely. The very first practice on this list is calculating your genuine cost of time. Take a brief moment this week to uncover what your actual hourly rate is, because that number is almost always significantly lower than what your official employment contract states. When we look at a standard salary, we often forget the hidden time costs associated with earning that paycheck, which completely distorts our perception of what our time is truly worth in the real world. Let us run through a highly realistic scenario to illustrate this hidden cost perfectly. Imagine an annual salary of $80,000 for a standard 40-hour work week. Assuming 2 weeks of vacation, that leaves 50 working weeks, equating to roughly 2,000 official hours per year. On paper, that looks like a gross rate of $40 per hour. But we have to factor in the uncompensated time, like a 25-minute commute each way, plus the 15 minutes spent getting ready every morning. That adds over an hour of dedicated work-related time every single day, pushing the total time commitment closer to 2,250 hours annually. Furthermore, that $80,000 is gross income. Once taxes and standard deductions are stripped away, the actual take-home pay might drop to around $63,000. When you divide that realistic $63,000 net income by the true 2,250 hours invested, the actual hourly wage plummets to exactly $28 per hour. Uncovering this precise $28 hourly rate forces a massive psychological shift in how everyday purchases are evaluated. Suddenly, a $280 dinner with friends is no longer just a swipe of a credit card. It is a literal representation of 10 grueling hours of your actual life energy. A $56,000 vehicle is not just a monthly payment. It equates to 2 entire years of your working life surrendered just to sit in traffic. The most financially astute individuals recognize that time is the ultimate finite asset, continually questioning whether a prospective purchase is genuinely worth sacrificing specific hours of their existence. Framing consumption through this lens naturally filters out superficial spending and redirects capital toward things that bring genuine value. The formula is remarkably simple. Calculate your absolute net income, sum up every single hour dedicated to the job, including commutes, and divide the money by the total hours to find your absolute baseline. The second practice to lock in immediately is automating your savings long before that money ever has the chance to be spent. Behavioral research consistently demonstrates that individuals who remove the manual friction of saving consistently hit their wealth targets, completely outpacing those who rely on sheer willpower at the end of the month. Psychologically, this strategy is practically foolproof. If a predetermined slice of your paycheck is instantly routed into an investment vehicle the second it clears, the temptation to spend it simply vanishes because the money is physically out of sight. Setting up this automated funnel takes perhaps 10 minutes out of your entire year, yet the compounding benefits will last a lifetime. You can coordinate this directly through your employer's payroll system or establish an automatic recurring transfer within your primary banking dashboard. The exact method does not matter. The absolute non-negotiable factor is that the system operates entirely without your active participation. The mechanics of this automation should be as rigid and reliable as a mathematical formula. Imagine your paycheck arriving reliably on the last Friday of the month, instantly hitting your primary checking account. From that central hub, all of the required capital for fixed expenses, basic necessities, and a bit of discretionary spending remains accessible. However, in the exact same breath, a designated percentage is automatically swept into a separate, dedicated investment portfolio built for the future. If you can force yourself to automate at least 10% of your net income into these growth accounts, you will immediately position yourself ahead of the vast majority of the population. Pushing that threshold to 15% or even 20% accelerates the timeline to financial independence exponentially. The sheer beauty of this system is that as your income naturally grows over time, the absolute dollar amount being saved scales up perfectly, ensuring lifestyle inflation never quietly consumes your hard-earned progress. The third habit you must adopt immediately is instituting a highly disciplined monthly financial check in. The secret here is to anchor this review to a specific, unmoving date on the calendar. Whether you choose the final day of the month, the 15th, or the 3rd, the critical component is unwavering consistency. During this dedicated review session, you will scrutinize every single dollar that flowed in and out of your accounts over the previous 30 days. The goal is to aggressively categorize these cash flows into three distinct buckets: absolute necessities, lifestyle desires, and future wealth creation. A highly effective benchmark to measure against is the classic 50-30-20 framework. Ideally, your core necessities like housing, mandatory utilities, basic groceries, and essential insurance should consume roughly 50% of your resources. The next 30% is allocated to the lifestyle bucket, funding your entertainment, dining out, and shopping. Finally, the remaining 20% is strictly fenced off for investing and aggressive debt elimination. But what happens when reality does not perfectly align with those ideal percentages? Let us say your monthly audit reveals that your core necessities are devouring 60% of your budget. Your lifestyle spending sits at 25%, and your future savings have shrunk to a meager 15%. This mathematical imbalance is a massive red flag indicating that structural changes are required to shift capital back into the wealth building category. You have to ruthlessly evaluate the heavy expenses driving that 60% figure. A standard residential lease is notoriously inflexible, meaning housing costs are largely locked in until renewal. Vehicle financing is similarly rigid, bound by long-term contractual obligations. However, line items like daily groceries, monthly insurance premiums, mobile networks, and broadband internet are highly elastic. Simply picking up the phone and directly confronting a service provider about a better rate can instantly trim unnecessary fat. Slashing just $15 a month from a single utility bill instantly cascades into nearly $200 of retained wealth annually. It is deeply important to acknowledge the geographical realities of modern housing markets, especially for those residing in fiercely expensive metropolitan hubs. If your zip code places you in a premium coastal city or a massive international financial center, your baseline survival costs are naturally going to push that necessity bracket well beyond the standard 50% threshold. That structural disadvantage is perfectly manageable, provided you adjust the rest of the equation accordingly. The absolute golden rule is that an inflated cost of living cannot be funded by cannibalizing your 20% wealth building allocation. If your rent demands 60% of your income, that extra 10% must be ruthlessly carved out of your lifestyle and entertainment budget, not your future investments. Creating a simple, customized tracking sheet to monitor these ratios forces you to confront the mathematical reality of your lifestyle choices. Executing this specific review habit for just a few consecutive months will dramatically sharpen your financial literacy and decision-making speed. Habit number 4 requires completely rewiring your brain to instantly distinguish between genuine assets and wealth-draining liabilities. Every single transaction you execute ultimately falls into one of two diametrically opposed categories. A purchase is either systematically funneling fresh capital into your accounts over time, or it is aggressively siphoning cash away from you. Understanding this dichotomy is the bedrock of building generational wealth. Let us look at personal transportation as the ultimate example of a liability. Beyond the initial capital required to acquire the vehicle, it constantly demands insurance premiums, fuel, routine maintenance, and repairs, all while suffering from catastrophic depreciation. Whether you drop $20,000 or $80,000 on a luxury model, you are fundamentally parking capital into an object designed to lose value. It operates like a vacuum, relentlessly pulling liquidity away from your net worth. Standard consumer debt operates on the exact same premise, contractually obligating you to bleed future earnings to satisfy a third party. Now, contrast that wealth-destroying dynamic with the mechanics of a true cash-flowing asset. Consider the acquisition of a well-positioned rental property. Every single month, that physical structure generates predictable rental yield, actively forcing new liquidity into your financial ecosystem, while the underlying property slowly appreciates. That is the definitive blueprint of an asset. A portfolio of dividend-paying equities operates on the exact same principle, delivering quarterly cash distributions simply for holding the shares, entirely independent of your daily labor. Before you authorize any significant financial commitment, you must brutally interrogate the purchase. Ask yourself, Will this acquisition actively print money for me, or is it a permanent drain on my resources? If you are finding this breakdown helpful, what is one major liability you recently cut out of your life to save money? Drop your answer in the comments below. It is always fascinating to see how people optimize their cash flow. Adopting this analytical lens transforms every single purchase into a highly conscious strategic deployment of capital. The fifth crucial practice for building serious financial literacy is habitually tracking your net worth, but doing so on a quarterly basis rather than driving yourself crazy checking it every single day. Think about it like a fitness journey. If you step on the scale every single morning, you are going to get discouraged by normal day-to-day fluctuations. But if you log your progress every few months, you can clearly see the long-term trend of your hard work. Financial awareness operates exactly the same way. When you track your net worth, you develop a natural, almost subconscious awareness of where your money is going, which automatically improves your long-term decision-making. Now, real quick, before we break down exactly how to calculate that number, if you are finding these strategies helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe to Kyle Invests. Also, I want to hear from you. What is one small financial habit that has completely changed the game for your bank account? Drop your answer in the comments below. I always love reading through those. Now, back to understanding your net worth and why it is the ultimate scoreboard for your financial life. Calculating your net worth is remarkably straightforward, yet the majority of people never actually take the time to figure it out. All you are doing is taking the total value of everything you own, your assets, and subtracting everything you owe, your liabilities. Let us run through a realistic example using some simple round numbers. Imagine you own a property valued at roughly $300,000, and you have managed to build up an investment and cash portfolio of about $50,000. On the flip side, you still owe $40,000 on a vehicle loan and maybe $10,000 in miscellaneous consumer debt. Your total assets sit at $350,000, while your total liabilities equal $50,000. Subtract the debt from the assets, and your true net worth is a solid $300,000. A lot of people get stressed out checking this number every month, especially if a large portion of their wealth is tied up in the stock market. A sudden market dip can make your net worth temporarily plunge, which feels terrible, but is not a true reflection of your financial discipline. That is exactly why pulling back and updating a simple tracking sheet just 4 times a year provides a much healthier, realistic perspective. Moving on to habit number 6, this is a brilliantly simple tactic that requires virtually zero effort. Negotiating just one recurring bill or service fee every single quarter. Let us do the math on the time commitment. If you spend 1 hour on the phone every 3 months, that averages out to less than 5 minutes of effort per week. To execute this properly, you need to audit your monthly statements and identify the one bill that consistently feels completely overpriced. Maybe it is your broadband internet, your cell phone plan, or a specialized insurance policy. You simply call their customer service during regular business hours and use a very specific, polite approach. You tell them that you have been a remarkably loyal customer for several years, but the current monthly rate has simply stretched beyond your current budget constraints. Then you casually mention that you have been researching competitor pricing and ask if they have any alternative plans or loyalty discounts available to keep you as a customer. You would be absolutely shocked by how often this single polite question results in an immediate reduction in your monthly bill. Now, the absolute key to making this negotiation strategy work is understanding that you should never just accept the very first no that you hear. The frontline representatives often have limited authority to alter your pricing structure. You want to give them a fair opportunity to resolve the issue, but if they refuse, politely end the call and try again later to speak with a different agent, or explicitly request to be transferred to the customer retention or loyalty department. These specific departments are armed with promotional codes and discount authority that regular representatives simply do not possess. You have to understand the fundamental economics of modern business. It is astronomically more expensive for a massive corporation to acquire a brand new customer than it is to simply offer a slight discount to retain an existing one. They would much rather shave $20 off your monthly premium than watch you walk away to a direct competitor. By consistently treating this as a quarterly habit, you are systematically reclaiming hundreds of dollars a year that would have otherwise vanished from your accounts. Habit number 7 shifts the focus away from spreadsheets and directly onto you. Spending capital to aggressively invest in your own skills and education. You have to realize that you are your own most valuable financial asset. It is not real estate, it is not an index fund, and it certainly is not some vintage luxury watch. Over the course of a standard career, the average professional will easily generate somewhere between $3 to $4 million in total lifetime earnings. If you can acquire a high income skill or specialized knowledge that increases your baseline earning potential by just 10%, you are effectively adding an extra $300,000 to $400,000 to your lifelong wealth trajectory. That massive sum of money can easily be the defining difference between a stressful, restricted retirement and one of total financial abundance. Furthermore, unlike physical assets that can be taxed, damaged, or depreciated, your internal skill set is entirely inflation proof and completely portable. No matter what happens to the broader economy, nobody can ever confiscate your expertise. A lot of people hesitate to spend real money on specialized courses, coaching, or premium education because they mistakenly believe they can simply learn everything for free on the internet. While it is entirely true that an ocean of free information exists out there, sifting through millions of disjointed videos and unverified articles costs you a tremendous amount of your most precious resource, your time. If you are balancing a demanding full-time career, raising a family, or managing a household, your free hours are incredibly limited. Paying for structured, high-quality education allows you to bypass the frustrating trial and error phase and leap directly to the implementation stage. You are essentially paying for speed and curated expertise. Buying access to a proven framework ensures you learn the right skills in the correct order, allowing you to immediately apply them in the real world to negotiate a higher salary or scale a secondary income stream. The return on investment for high-level education will almost always outperform any traditional stock market index over a long enough time horizon. The eighth critical habit is fully embracing the concept of investing as early as humanly possible, regardless of how small the initial amounts might seem. There is a fascinating financial concept often referred to as front-loading your wealth, which perfectly illustrates the sheer unstoppable power of compounding interest over time. Many people delay investing because they falsely believe they need a massive lump sum of cash to even get started. They wait for the perfect salary, the perfect market conditions, or the perfect moment of stability, and in doing so, they waste the most critical ingredient in wealth creation: time. The psychological hurdle of feeling like you are already too late to the game paralyzes millions of capable people. But the reality of financial mathematics is that starting right now with a modest, consistent contribution is infinitely more powerful than waiting a decade to invest larger amounts. The mechanics of compound growth heavily favor those who simply get their capital into the market and let it sit undisturbed for decades. Let us look at a concrete mathematical breakdown to prove exactly why starting early is so devastatingly effective. Imagine two different individuals investing in the exact same market, earning a steady 8% annual return. Person A starts early, investing $1,000 a month for just 10 years, contributing a total of $120,000. After that 10th year, they stop adding new money entirely and just let the account grow. Person B waits 10 years to start, but then aggressively invests that same $1,000 a month for the next 30 years, contributing a massive $360,000 out of pocket. By the end of a 40-year timeline, Person A, who invested far less money, will have a portfolio worth over $1.8 million. Person B, despite contributing 3 times as much of their own cash, will end up with significantly less wealth overall. That is the undisputed magic of compounding interest. If you are feeling behind, remember that while the absolute best time to start investing was the day you turned 18, the second best time is right this very second. Even if it is just $100 a month into a low-cost index fund, get the momentum started. Finally, we arrive at habit number 9, which is absolutely vital for your long-term sanity. You must consciously celebrate your financial wins, regardless of how small they might appear. Building lasting wealth requires immense discipline, and if you never take the time to acknowledge your progress, you will inevitably experience severe burnout and abandon the journey entirely. Imagine playing a massive, endlessly difficult video game that has absolutely no save points, zero achievements, and no leveling up system, just a continuous, grueling grind until the screen eventually goes black. Nobody would want to play that game because human psychology requires positive feedback loops to sustain motivation. If you feel like you are endlessly sacrificing your current lifestyle for a future that never seems to arrive, your brain will eventually rebel and trigger a massive, destructive spending spree. To prevent this, you need to engineer a system of specific pre planned rewards that trigger whenever you cross a meaningful financial milestone. Treat your financial journey exactly like training for a grueling marathon. You do not wake up on day one expecting to sprint 26 miles effortlessly. You train slowly, you fuel your body correctly, and you aggressively celebrate every time you hit a new distance record. When you finally hit your first $5,000 saved, or when you successfully invest 20% of your income for 3 consecutive months, you have to acknowledge that consistent effort. Treat yourself to an incredible dinner where you refuse to look at the prices, book a weekend getaway, or buy that specific item you have been eyeing for months. Doing this physically wires your brain to associate saving and investing with intense pleasure rather than restrictive punishment. If you adopt this marathon mindset and stop obsessing over instant gratification, you will effortlessly build unbreakable financial literacy and generational wealth. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Be sure to drop a comment down below sharing that one financial habit that completely changed the game for you. I would love to read it. See you in the next video. And remember, stay smart with your money. Take care.